Ja, hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe der Tesla Welt. Mein Name ist David und wir sprechen wie immer hier über Tesla. Ich habe heute einen ganz besonderen Gast und das ist Brian vom YouTube-Kanal FutureAzA. Der eine oder andere kennt ihn vielleicht schon. Brian wohnt in den USA und verfolgt seit langem Tesla. Und er war bei einem ganz speziellen Event. Das darf er uns aber gleich selber erzählen. Herzlich willkommen, Brian. Du sprichst ein bisschen Deutsch, habe ich gehört.
Oh, glaube ich nicht. Tut mir leid, dass es nicht auf Deutsch, aber ich hätte keine Zeit vorzubereiten.
Ja, das ist kein Problem.
Vorzubereiten.
We're gonna switch to English because I think
Sehr
for the
gut.
technical things it's gonna be easy, but I really appreciate that you speak a little bit of German and at some point we're gonna make a German interview, I'm sure about that. Tesla Welt wird präsentiert von Shop for Tesla. Hier startet jetzt die Weihnachtskampagne. Mit meinem Code erhaltet ihr bis zum Jahresende 10% Rabatt. Und bei Holy sind jetzt die Xmas-Sorten da. Holy Energy Baked Apple Bohr und Holy Energy Xmas feiern ihre Rückkehr. Und es gibt den gratis Thermoshaker zum Starter-Set Deluxe dazu. Die Links dazu findet ihr unten in der Beschreibung und ihr unterstützt dadurch auch den Kanal. Brian, nice to have you on the channel. First of all, welcome. And maybe for the people who don't know you yet here on this channel, you could make a very quick introduction and tell us about you and since how long you are following Tesla.
I've been following Tesla for a very long time, probably 2012. In probably 2016, I started putting charts together and all that and looking at it, tracking it. But it wasn't until 2020 that I actually started a channel. So I've been doing my channel for over 4 years. I've got over 2,000 videos there. And I do analysis. I do deep dives. I get out in the field. I see engineers. I meet people. And I go to all these places. This year alone, I've been to 6 different countries. I've been to 26 of the US states. And I'm always trying to find something that others haven't. And when it came to Cybercab, when we had this unique opportunity last week to get in front of the engineers, I hopped in the car and I drove 14 hours each way just to get that opportunity. And it seems that I was able to get a lot of information that others didn't yet have.
Yes, that sounds very exciting, of course. I already had the chance to sit in the Cybercab myself because Tesla put one of them in Berlin. But of course, you had the much better opportunity because you could talk to the engineers. So first of all, maybe you explain a little bit more about the setting. How many people were there? How many people did you talk to? And of course, then we want to know, what did you talk about or what did you ask them?
So the event was put together by the Tesla owners of Silicon Valley. John, you may have met him in Austria when we were there last summer. And I may have met some of you last summer when I was there. But they put it together. Tesla worked with the Silicon Valley Owners Club and said, we will not only let people sit in it, but let them talk to the engineers. There were, I think, 5 engineers there. I only spoke with 4 of them. And they did a brief presentation, which is up on my X and YouTube accounts, which I've cleaned up the audio substantially so you can actually hear what they're saying. And then they said, okay, no more recording at this point. And the engineers stood inside the roped off area around the Cybercab and just answered questions for hours. There were probably 150, 200 people there when it started. But as soon as it started, people started leaving. And by the end, there was just a handful of us left and the employees telling us, you need to leave. It's time. It's over. The doors are locked. Please go. So what kind of questions could we ask? Well, we could ask anything. Didn't mean they would answer it. Some of the answers were more direct than others. And in a lot of cases, when I didn't get the answer I wanted, I would just go to a different engineer and ask the question in a different way and see if I got an answer that time. And sometimes I would. So we asked everything: drivetrain, batteries, philosophy, design, engineering. The most insightful answers I got were when I asked the question of each of them, what excites you most about this vehicle? And a lot of the answers were all about efficiency and the role that they played in achieving the incredible milestones they have. But some of the other answers were things about how it's going to change the way people think about transportation in the future.
So maybe let's talk about this efficiency question, because I thought that was something that I've seen on one of your videos, and I thought it was interesting that all of them give you this as the most remarkable feature of the Cybercab. Because yes, of course, it's all about efficiency when it comes to electric cars, but here I think efficiency has a lot of different angles, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit. Of course, the car gonna be efficient. It's gonna not use a lot of energy, that's for sure. But for example, what do you think is makes it efficient in a way that it has, for example, just 2 seats?
So right there, you've cut down the size of the vehicle substantially. You've cut down the parts count. Sandy Monroe did a great video explaining how they can actually reduce the number of parts in this car by 60%, how everything is so much simpler because it's designed for one purpose. When you and I buy a car today, it's designed for all purposes. It's designed for, going to the store. It's designed for comfort. It's designed for moving weird things. It's designed for everything. It's designed for off-roading. It's designed for a little bit of handling curbs or racing. This isn't designed for any of that. One of their engineers asked them, how am I supposed to, if I've got a bag of yard material and I need to bring it up there? And he said, you're not. That's not what this is for. This is a people mover. And while you can use it for those purposes, we're not going to design it for that purpose. So when you've got efficiency like that, when you know what your use case is, this car will never be drag raced. It'll never be out doing 0 to 60s. Once you realize that, you say, well, now we don't need a big motor. We need the smallest motor we can get in that will allow people to comfortably, you don't want it to have breakneck acceleration when there's no driver in the car. So now the motor is smaller. Well, that means the cooling system for the motor and the battery can be smaller. That means the battery doesn't have to be able to take large drains over and over back to back. It means that and now that the cabin's smaller, you don't need to heat and cool a large cubic volume of space. You just need to control a very small space. So the heating and cooling system can be much smaller, much simpler, and it just keeps going from there. With everything, the brakes don't need to, be designed to handle stopping from, incredible speeds, just reasonable speeds. 100, 120 kilometers per hour should be enough. We don't need it to go, racetrack. So all of that helps. And then you've got no mirrors, which sounds simple. A little bit of drag, great. You picked up 1-2% there, but you also dropped the weight of the mirrors. You dropped the wiring for the mirrors, the heating element to keep the mirrors from frosting up. All of that is now gone. So there's just every single piece. They would have meetings where they'd sit around a table and argue over grams. They didn't tell me this one, but I imagine it would be things like the rear lift gate is powered. And I'm sure someone at some point said, why are we putting a motor in it? Why have an actuator at all? We don't need one. And they would say, well, if we don't have an actuator, we need to have a much stronger trunk that can survive being slammed by people all day. Do you want a heavier trunk or do you want a motor? And if someone leaves it open when they're done, how will the cab move? Can it leave before it closes? Will it ask someone to close it for them? No, they need that motor, and they're, willing to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Did you, maybe we can talk a little bit about the doors, because that was something a lot of people were questioning. Why did they choose this kind of doors? I mean, you've seen the cab as well, and you've sat in it, and you could check out the doors. Do you think first question is, do you think they take too much space, like on the road? Like when they go up.
So my belief was always these are not the final doors, and so we asked them point blank, are you going to change the door? They said, look, this car is basically done. The final version may look a little different than this, but it will be as close to what you see today as the Cybertruck is to the prototype that we saw years ago. This is it. This is how the doors will open. And I said, are you concerned that it sticks out too far? And the answer is that The Cybercab door all the way out is only as far as a Model S door is when it's halfway out, because the car is 200 millimeters narrower. So that gives you a big advantage. And if you've ever ridden in a taxi or a rideshare of any kind, you know it's common to, on a busy street, open one door and slide over. This has a bench seat. It's not like a typical front seat of a car. It's more like a typical back seat of a car. You can slide right over. There's no center console that's going to block your legs. There's no lump in the middle that's going to make it so you have to climb. Just slide over. So if one door is open, it is narrower by far. But even with both doors open, the car is, it's just narrower. The car that you and I own was designed to fit 3 people across in the back. This is not designed to fit 3 people across. It's designed to fit 2.
Yeah, that is also something that I remarked when I sat in. It's really small, a smaller car, and of course the upside of the doors, if you would think the space is a downside, is of course that you have really a lot of space to get in, because the door is absolutely not in your way, and they also
and the opening is big.
And the opening is big, and they moved the B pillar as well. So the seat is really before the B pillar. So it's really
there actually is no B pillar.
Yeah,
because there's no rear window. So there is no rear B pillar.
Yeah,
that wall behind the occupant space, behind the riders, is a structural wall, which keeps which keeps the luggage from coming into the compartment in the event of an accident. It supports the structure of the vehicle. It insulates for sound and temperature. So it serves 4 purposes while getting rid of a complicated and expensive piece of a vehicle, the B pillar.
Yeah.
And those doors being so big, those doors being so big, I've seen people say, well, it's so low, I don't think my grandmother will be able to get in and out. And what I pointed out is that I was able to get in and out while holding a microphone in one hand and a camera in the other. It's not every car that I can get in and out of with no hands. Not that I've spent a lot of time trying, but that's very easy. That giant door hole makes it easy. The fact that it's a bench instead of a bucket seat means to get out, you just swing your legs out and stand up.
Yeah. And I think it's also, of course, for cleaning purposes. We've seen this robot in the video that is going to clean the car, and there's a lot of space for this kind of machine to get in there. So this again is an efficiency point, if you want, because then the cleaning is faster. So I think the decision, I can understand the decision, and for the first look that people took, I guess it took some getting used to this concept. But yeah, it's good to hear that, again, like the other Teslas or prototypes that we've seen before from the Cybertruck or even for Model 3, or as it will stay very close to this design, or this is actually the design or the final design. And of course, there are going to be some improvements maybe, but yeah, that's good to see. What do you think about the missing glass roof? Because all the Teslas before, or nearly all the Teslas before, had a glass roof. This is again an efficiency point, right?
It is absolutely that. Glass is heavier, glass is more expensive. Those are the easy answers. Those are the ones I figured out before going. When I got there, they said yes, but also glass is a heating and cooling nightmare, because on a sunny day, it gets too hot and you have to cool the cabin. And on a cold day, the heat just wicks right out. So that's the third reason. The fourth reason is fingerprints. We want a car that's easy to clean, and if somebody touches the inside of it, now you've got fingerprints. It diminishes the experience. It increases the cost to keep it clean. We don't want that. So there's, and also for the sound inside, it is quieter to not have the glass. It makes the stereo sound better for the infotainment. So there's nothing but benefits to getting rid of that glass.
And they could even cut the infotainment in half, I guess, as they are much less speakers.
I said with the cabin being less than half the size. You could cut the sound by about half. And he said, it's exactly half. We cut it exactly in half, and it sounds better than in a Model 3 because it's a tighter space. It's got better acoustics.
Yeah.
So there, you've got less wire, less parts, less weight, and a better experience.
Yeah. So it's not surprising that when we think that it's also a new platform and a new way how to build the car, actually, that they completely aim at this goal to cut the cost in half to produce this car.
Right. And the parts count, if you look at it, you can see how many pieces are not there. There's no door handles. Think of how many pieces goes into making a door handle that works on the inside and all that. It's not one piece. It's a bunch of pieces plus a bunch of engineering. And we asked about that, the simplification. And he said that the original Model 3 had 380 body elements that went into the body. Well, the structural battery Model Y, which they didn't make very many of, but they will again in the future, I'm sure, had body elements totaling 180, and the Cybercab has 80 body elements. 80. That's it. That's insane. That you would, as an engineer, crazy, as a manufacturer, you love to see that.
Yeah. And sometimes people say, yeah, but this little part that costs nothing, or that's just some cents. But I watched the video from Sandy Monroe today, actually, and I thought that's a brilliant explanation that, yeah, it's not just about the costs of the part, it's also the handling of the part. And maybe it needs to be taken care of on the line, and then somebody has to actually screw it to the car, and all of a sudden you have not just the cost of the part, but you also have maybe 12 seconds process to fix it to the car. And that's where the cost lies as well. So reducing parts is really the key.
Yes, you have to pay someone to design that part, to engineer it, to validate it, and then to source it from suppliers, to validate it from suppliers. Then you have to pay someone to install it. And once it's installed and tested, then you need to cover it under warranty. The rear windows will never need to be fixed under warranty on this car because there are no rear windows. The door handles will not break because there are no door handles. So a lot of the design philosophy continued from there. Panel gaps are something that is a hassle, a pain. If you look inside of most cars, any car really, but most, maybe not Mercedes. They're very good. Lexus is pretty good. But if you look at the interior of a car, you'll see where the panels don't always line up perfectly. And you may have to really look to find the places where they don't match. This car has no place where the lines are supposed to meet. So instead of having two straight lines that are supposed to continue, it'll just do a parallel line instead. You won't notice if it's off by several millimeters in either direction because there's no clear place where it's supposed to be. And they did that on the outside too. The panels don't have traditional lines where you would notice a gap. So they've made it so that it's got wider tolerances in the manufacturing, and wide tolerances are cheaper than tight tolerances every time.
Yeah. And I think there's also a difference in the material that they've chosen. I mean, we don't know it exactly for sure. And maybe this is also something that could change a little bit still. But as I understood it also from Sandy Monroe, he thinks it's carbon fiber. There's a lot of carbon fiber, right?
Yes, in so the prototypes are all carbon fiber. They made them at the Los Angeles Design Studio in Hawthorne, and but we asked, is it going to be carbon fiber? Is it going to be ABS plastic? And they said it is not known. The only thing we know for sure, he said it could be aluminum, it could be plastic, it could be carbon fiber. The only thing we know for sure is it will not be stainless steel because that is too expensive, too heavy, and doesn't suit the purpose of the Cybercab.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Because I think from the material standpoint, there was also, of course, in the way you manufacture it a lot of advantages of carbon fiber, of course. So
there are also advantages to plastic in that it's much quicker. Plastic is so fast. You tool up once and the die is good for a million, 2 million shots. Carbon fiber is more time intensive, labor intensive, and worst of all, space intensive because it's got the drying, the curing process. So carbon fiber, I spoke with a company that does carbon fiber shells last year at, I don't remember if it was CES or the North America Battery Show, but they had samples of what they do on display. And they were of the belief that they could engineer something like a Cybercab for tremendous volume without it being a deal breaker. So I'd say carbon fiber is still, it is not a dead idea, but I still think that the ABS plastic would be cheaper, quicker, and easier.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the trunk, because that was something that surprised me when I've seen it in real life. Because you have on the sides, I don't know how to call that, but it looks nearly like it's part of the space where for the wheels, but I think it's not. And so it's quite narrow in the middle. Of course, there's huge space and you can put a lot of luggage. But it was interesting to see. I wasn't, even after the Cybercab presentation, I didn't really notice that too much until I've seen it in real life.
So what you expected to see was a weird, irregular shape like every trunk you've ever seen. And what you saw instead was a box.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, the first reason is manufacturing simplicity. There is enough space. We don't need to get every last cubic inch in here. And the second is maintenance, wear and tear. If I'm going to be stuffing things into your trunk and then pulling them back out, anything it could get caught on will induce wear and damage. But if it's straight, I'm just going to put things straight in, take them straight out. That makes it quicker and easier for me to load and unload, and it makes for less damage to the vehicle. And if the space in total is sufficient, we don't need every little corner to pack in teddy bears while we're moving from house to house. That's not what this car is for.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. I like playing Tetris with my trunk.
It just got easier.
Yeah, I think so. When I've seen the cab, and I made a video about it, of course, they told me you can film anything, but don't film under the cab, please. Don't take too low shots, and please don't film the underneath the car. Did you have something similar, or do you know why they don't want to show that?
They did not say anything like that to us that I heard, and I didn't see anyone trying to do it. What I would guess is that of the 20 models that were made, 19, 20 Cybercabs that were made, some were more complete than others, and you may have seen one that was less complete. Maybe it didn't have the skid plate on the bottom. So I don't know on that because... Yeah, I imagine it was probably a bit of a mess down there, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe it was something about charging, or do you actually know how they charge the car right now?
Right now, I don't. My guess would be that there's a hidden charger somewhere, that there's a hidden port maybe in the front or something, but maybe that's what they were trying to prevent you from seeing. I know when I asked the first engineer, I was trying to get him to tell me, my theory was that it would be single motor rear wheel drive, and he wouldn't answer me. He said, we'll make an announcement about that next year. So instead I went to a different engineer and I just asked him a simple question. My friend Jan from Tesla Fix has a rear wheel drive Model 3 and he's concerned. He's saying, I don't think I get all of my regenerative braking. And I told Jan, I think he does. So you're an engineer, and this isn't a Cybercab question. Is he getting all of his regenerative braking from just the rear motor? And he said, oh yeah, he's probably getting 80, 90% of what he would expect. But it doesn't matter because the Cybercab's front wheel drive.
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Let me jot that down.
Yeah. Okay.
So it could be that they didn't want you to see the motor configuration, or they didn't want you to see that there's a charge cord dangling down.
Yeah. Okay. What would be your theory why they choose this design? Like, I mean, why they choose a design where they have a motor on the front instead of in the rear?
So I think they don't want to have a frunk. A frunk is just one more place for passengers to forget things. When you have a frunk, you need hinges, you need actuators, you need levers, you need releases, you need safety sensors, you need a light for the frunk. You might even need a button for an emergency unlock. All of that adds cost, weight, complexity. For what you end up with is a very small amount of space. The front is already very small. Why don't we just go ahead and put the motor there? And now we have no reason to let anyone open the front. Just put all the electronics up there. So if you've got the charger in the front, the motor in the front, the BMS, the battery management system in the front, you don't need to bring any of the high voltage back from the passenger's feet. That is where the high voltage system would end. And I think having it all at one end like that would be a big cost saver and a big time saver in manufacturing.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, some people were speculating that it would be useful to have a frunk because maybe if it's my Cybercab and I rent it out, maybe I have some private stuff that I still want to keep in there or something. But yeah, I guess it's, again, a use case question. And what do we want the car to do, actually? And so it makes completely sense to your explanation. Yeah. Yeah, maybe did they say something that completely surprised you? That would be also interesting.
One thing I had thought going into it was that these are not the wheels they're going to use. These wheels just look cool. They look cool, and on prototypes, you want something that looks cool. Now, I still say that the gold paint around the edge of the tire may go away. That doesn't serve a purpose. But having large wheels like that, I thought, no way. They're going to go with 16, 17-inch tires, the same front and back. And I asked them about that, and they said, nope, these tires were chosen for a very specific reason. Larger tires means less rolling resistance. The bigger, the better. So we went as big as we could. In the back, that meant we could do 21-inch rims. And in the front, we could only do 18. And we had to keep it low, smaller for the front because the larger wheel means more aero drag. And in the front, that aero penalty is much larger. Okay. So in the back, they've got the bigger wheels, and in the back end is actually narrower than the front end. And the reason, there's actually more reasons why they couldn't go bigger in the front. The other is, if they're the turning wheels, the centrifugal force of them makes it harder to turn the bigger the wheel gets. And the bigger the wheel is, if you've got the limited space in the front for turning as it is, a giant wheel turning becomes more space intensive. So the fact is those wheels are the final wheels. Those are what they plan to use at this point. And that really surprised me.
Okay. Well, that's interesting that they told you the actual size of it as well. And what did you mean?
Well, it was printed on the tire.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It was printed on the tire. You could just read them.
Yeah. Okay.
What did I mean about?
What did you mean about in the back narrower? Or did you say that? Or did
the rear of the car is narrower than the front of the car.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The entire car is teardrop shaped a little bit. Yeah. So because there's a shadow of the wind at the back, those back tires aren't going to grab the air as much as they would if the back end was a little bit wider.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah. Yeah, great. And what did you talk about with them in terms of how this car gonna change the perception as well of a regular car? I mean, that is, I think, for a lot of people difficult to imagine how this is going to change society and how we think about the way we think about cars today.
So I was talking with a gentleman who said, I'm going to convince my church to buy 6 or 10 of these so that on Sundays we have a way to get the people into church who can't drive. And I said, boy, you're thinking about it all wrong. If you're going to do that, why wouldn't you have them out rolling around all week making money? In fact, why wouldn't you leave them out on Sunday if they're still making money and then hire someone else's Cybercab to pick up the people? In fact, why do any of that? Just hire Cybercabs and the church doesn't need to buy $200,000 worth of cars. So it's, you can get a lot of rides for $200,000 and not have to worry about someone breaking into it during the week when it's not in use. The idea, a lot of people think, well, I'll have one for myself and I'll let it go out and make money, but I'll make sure it's back here when I want it. Why? Just take someone else's. You just have to rethink everything. I've seen people say, well, I have a tight garage. These doors won't open in my garage. I said, why are you getting out of your car in your garage if it's that tight? Just get out and let the car deal with it. It's not your job anymore. It's the chauffeur's problem, and this is your chauffeur. So it will be, at first, I think everyone will still cling to the old antiquated idea, the old traditional notion that I need to own my car. But there will come a day when maybe your car is broken down and you just use the Cybercab for a bit before you realize this is better. I don't need a car. So it will require a big shift in thinking.
And I guess the next generation will, for them, it will be a lot easier because they're gonna directly get used to this kind of concept. And I think maybe, yeah, us older people, elderly people, I nearly said, we're going to be the ones who have a problem in their head with this new concept and getting used to this. But I think if I think about my kids, I don't think they're gonna have an issue with that.
When I was a teenager, everyone rushed to get their license. Everyone at 16, certainly by 18, was driving. And the younger generation has no interest in that. They look at what a car costs. They look at what insurance costs. They look at the stress and hassle of it and say, life is already expensive enough. If there's a better way, I'm going to take it. And driving isn't fun for everyone. Some people love driving, and some people say they love driving. But what they really mean is they love certain parts of driving. I love certain parts of flying, but I don't. The experience itself is terrible. If I could skip flying, I would. But it's going to be the same thing where if you buy a car, you're already not going to be driving it. So why buy the car in the first place? What's the difference? Yeah. But yes, it'll be a shift in the head space.
Yeah. Were you surprised that Tesla is going to sell the Cybercab at all?
No, I'm not surprised because the speed at which they'll be able to manufacture them means they would spend all of their money quicker than they would like. Now, I asked the engineer, $25,000, would the sale price include the software, or would it be software as a service where they have to subscribe? And he said, well, that's a weird question. Of course, it would have to include the software. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I said, well, a lot of industrial equipment is sold on that model where you buy the equipment and then you pay for the software forever. Charge point chargers are a good example. They don't work without the software and you have to buy the software. He said, no, it would include the price. It would be included. And I said, at $25,000? And he said, well, I can't really talk about that. I said, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Of course, it's not going to be $25,000 on day one. That doesn't make any sense. You and I would pay $50,000 for it. There are a lot of people in a lot of markets who would pay $50,000 or more. And if it costs $25,000 to make and you're selling it for $50,000, that means for every car you sell, you get to keep one for free. And that, I think, is a better way to deploy their capital. Let people invest their money to do their thing. We can't control the whole market, and we don't want to. We can benefit while helping you benefit yourself as well.
Yeah, makes sense. We've seen the Cybercab being tested around gigataxes lately quite a lot. Joe Tagmeyer is up with his drones, always making footage about this, and he's spotting them. What do you think are the main tests that they do there? Because I mean, it's not about FSD testing, because they can do that probably with any other car. What do you think is the purpose for that?
You want testing done in the car. We saw that before they started using these, they had Model Ys with cameras put further back in the windows where the placement would be on the Cybercab, so they could get a pretty good idea how it works. Testing at Giga Texas is the best place. I checked it. I did a video about this. There's about 11 miles of road in there. And it's every kind of road. It's fast roads, slow roads, it's divided roads, it's roundabouts. There's a boring tunnel there. If you need the environment, the only thing that's missing is stoplights. And you're on private land that's full of obstacles, people, equipment. It's always changing. There's a big parking garage you can test in. And everyone there is an employee. They're able-bodied people who do not have pets or vision impairment that would make them vulnerable to a test environment like this. It's everything you could ask for in a test environment. So what are they testing more specifically? I think they're just racking up miles to validate that it works. And then I think the next step to that is to start giving employees access to use it around the lot, so they can summon it with their app and get that part of the network dialed in, so that when it does come time to roll it out wider, they have a very good idea what to expect.
Yeah, I mean,
and it could even be that they're just testing the app.
Yeah, that's true. When Tesla said they are testing the app already since a couple of months,
in California,
probably not with the Cybercab, but with Model 3 and Model Y for employees. Do you know anything more about this?
We asked about that, and they didn't want to share much about it, just that that what was said is true. What we do know is that it has a human behind the wheel who just isn't touching the wheel. And what they need to determine is, because the Cybercab at 1010 was running version 13. It just had it was just reskinned for the event, so that you couldn't put in a destination outside of where you were. But if they've got this beta running on version 13 and the safety driver says, look, I haven't had to touch the wheel in a week, we know we've got a winner on our hands. But what we don't know is what the driver's experience has been so far.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, did you already have the chance to drive the V13 yourself?
I have not. I am not in the early access pool.
Yeah.
It's Tesla. I've been doing this 4 years. I've made thousands of videos, and yet Tesla doesn't invite me to events. The fact that I got into this event wasn't because Tesla invited me. It was because the Tesla owners of Silicon Valley invited me. And when I was there, the engineers clearly did not have any idea who I was. I think when I see them next, they will know who I am. I think they'll remember me because I'm probably on their radar now.
Yeah, that is a good thing, I think.
I think so.
And it's always good if you have a chance to exchange with them directly. I think that's it's always nice, and it's the source. And if they can say something about it, it's the best way to get information from them and about the cab, of course. Maybe if I watch Tesla events, then usually I'm very excited about what I see. But not everybody is, actually. There's a lot of people who watch the Cybercab event and who expected Tesla for some reason to present as a smaller, compact car at some point, of course, with a steering wheel, and which is just cheaper because, Tesla vehicles are still, if you buy them new, quite expensive. And a lot of people wish to have a cheaper, affordable car. I didn't expect that at all, of course, for the Cybercab event, but afterwards there was this discussion if Tesla can use this vehicle design and just put in a wheel and easily, and then have this Model 2 that everybody expected for a long time.
So I've seen a lot of people saying that all they got to do is add a wheel and pedals. And it's not that easy, of course, because that space under the dash has been taken up by other systems. That real estate has been consumed. But let's say you did that. Let's say you added a wheel and pedals. Well, we know that the motor's only geared to 85. That would be pretty unacceptable to a human driver. And the fact that it's not really capable of any kind of 0 to 60 performance means you'd need to change the motor. And so we're changing the motor. It's heavier now. We've got more parts. And then because now we can take corners the way a human would take corners instead of very, very gently like a little people mover, we're probably going to need to update the suspension, the brakes, the tires, and the wheels. So we need to change that system. And if we're changing all that, the battery cooling is no longer probably going to be adequate. We need to change the battery cooling. And because we've added so much weight, now we need to change the battery too. So what we're describing is a completely different car. That car was called the NV91, and that car was canceled in April. So this was something that they were working on, but development stopped. And it would be a different car. It might look like the same car, but it would be completely different. You need to add back in all your buttons and switches and your mirrors and the wiring to the mirrors, and the wiring harness will double in size, and it just keeps adding on from there. And because it's going to be an every person's car, now we need to have not just the wireless charging, but now we do need a charging port as well. We need both systems. So this is, that would be a completely different car, unfortunately, because it'd be cool.
Yeah. So I always thought about this. Okay, but if they would do that, then you have a compact car with just 2 seats. And usually we are used to having at least 4 seats, maybe, or maybe even 5 seats, even in a compact car. And who would want to buy that if then he has a completely weird car with 2 seats? I mean,
so somebody would buy it. Somebody would buy it. Mazda Miatas were very popular, but I agree with you. It wouldn't be as large of a market. I also saw people saying, well, they could just remove the rear divider and put seats back there. And no, the roof is much too low, and that's a structural element. You can't remove the structural element. One person there said, well, I have dogs. Can I cut a hole in it so the dogs can breathe? And the answer is no. This is a structural wall. You will not be cutting a hole in it. So you can't get 2 more seats in there, not even very small ones. It just is. It is this.
Yeah, I think so as well. Did they give you any information how many people worked on the Cybercab?
Oh, they might have, and I didn't remember. I don't have a number on the top of my head.
Okay. And one question I wanted to ask you about as well is, we've heard that GM stopped the development of Cruise, or at least the development of their proper robo-taxi, because it was just too expensive and didn't scale. Their business model didn't scale. And they said that they burned something like $10 billion all in all on this development. Do you have any idea, or maybe an estimation, how much the robotaxi effort at Tesla costs over the years?
So if you're including all of FSD development, so it's tricky. It's really tough because they've had to put $1,000, $2,000 of hardware into every car they've sold since Hardware 2. For almost every car they've sold. But they needed that to get the data. But at the same time, they've been selling it. And even if you only sell 10, 15%, have a take rate that high, that means that your cost for all that installation is probably about 0, except that you can't count all of it. You can't count all of it until all of it's delivered, but you can count some of it. Now that they have the subscription model, that $100 a month that's going in counts. At the end of the month, that's real money. It's done. I didn't purchase a product. I purchased access to whatever's available, and I got it. That's real money. I would say that Tesla's definitely not down by $10 billion. They may have spent $10 billion, but they are not down by $10 billion. And that would include everything. That would include the GPU cluster, Cortex, all the processing. That would include all the hardware that they've used in the past to process it. That would include everything. So I would say Tesla's probably also spent $10 billion, but it didn't cost them $10 billion. And unlike Cruise, Tesla has a revenue stream from it today.
Yeah. What do you expect? How long will it take until the first car company is going to partner with Tesla for the FSD system?
I think it will not happen until it is unsupervised. I think as soon as I think the companies don't want to do it. They don't want to admit that Tesla will possibly be not only the first, but the best. It's difficult to give money to your competitor. But I think once it is solved, once it is unsupervised, there will be no way around it. And I think we will see one company jump first. Maybe it's Ford. They've had a good relationship in the past. And then just like the switch to the North American charging standard, the floodgates will be open and others will follow.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. But yeah, so unsupervised FSD. Elon said 2025.
What he said was the end of next year,
yeah.
But I feel like he might have said that a time or two before as well.
Maybe one time.
He's been saying the end of next year for many years. Yeah. So when things are that far out, when it comes to Elon time, anything more than a few weeks is a question mark. When the 8.8 event was announced, it was announced 4 months in advance. And I said, I am not going to book my tickets because, well, one, we don't know where it is. And two, we don't know when it is. People said, no, it's 8.8. I said, yeah, things 4 months out tend to slip. And it did slip. So he said end of next year, but I have been known to be optimistic on my timelines. Yes, you have, Mr. Musk. And he's not lying. He's being optimistic. He believes it. When he said it all these times, he believed it. Everyone believed it. In 2012, the entire industry, there were 100 players working on autonomous vehicles. And if you asked any of them, when will it be solved? They would have told you by 2020, our company will have it solved and 5 to 10 others will have it solved. But definitely us, our team for sure, and some other teams. And all of those people were wrong. Investors lost untold billion, probably $100 billion were lost on those ventures. And yet only one company gets criticism. Seems pretty weird. Cruise lost $10 billion and is now throwing in the towel. And I don't see people saying Mary lied. She lied to us. And she did lie to you. She said by 2030, they would have $50 billion a year in revenue coming in from robotaxis. And now she's saying, oh, I didn't realize that you had to wash the cars. Come on. That's not believable, Mary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, of course, he missed completely the timeline as the others as well. But I think there was still certain truth to what he said in terms of the robotaxi, because and I get often criticism on my channel if I talk about the Cybercab and I say it's the robotaxi, because we know that the Model 3 and the Model Y and all the others are as well robotaxis. And Elon said on the Autonomy Day, okay, next year we're going to have 1 million robotaxis on the road. Yeah, he was right. They didn't drive themselves, but they are robotaxis and they were on the road. So,
yes. Yeah, I would say robotaxi is the service and Cybercab is one of the products.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can see it like that. Yeah, that's true. Is there something from what you heard from the engineers that we didn't cover now, and what you would like to add, maybe?
A little one that a lot of people were asking is it going to have a windshield wiper? And if so, does it need a full one or just a little one at the top where the cameras are? And I asked the engineer that, and he looked at me funny and said, this car has a windshield wiper. I said, does it? And I went and looked, and sure enough, it does. It does have a windshield wiper. I just didn't see it because it's in the normal spot, tucked down under the hood. In terms of other things, no, I don't know. I've been talking about this so much all week. I can't remember what I've said and what I haven't, but they've thought of everything. They have thought of everything. When people say, I've seen people on X saying the door is too pointy. It's too pointy. You're going to bonk your head if you're a cyclist. And this happened during my live Ask Me Anything yesterday, which ran for 90 minutes on X and YouTube. And someone was saying, nope, I don't believe it. This is deadly because people will bonk their heads. So I just pulled up an image search of bicycle car door and found endless images that show people that car doors are already the height of your head if you're on a bicycle. That's already a thing. Get over it. So it doesn't matter. We're past it. The design is locked. They said they may add reflective tape along the inner edge of the door. They may add more lights to improve visibility. But the big thing is, just like in the latest update to your car, if something is screaming through your blind spot, coming right up beside you, and you poke the button to open the door, your screen will flash and say, can't open it right now. Something's in your blind spot. Press it again if you need to open it anyway to override this. That the Cybercab will not open the door into traffic. It will work around that, and you won't be trapped. If anything, it'll just pull around the corner and drop you off there instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds very exciting that you had this chance to talk to at least these 4 team members. Sounds like you had a lot of fun there, and of course, it was really, really nice that you shared this information with us. I can say thank you that you've been here on this channel. And maybe we do the next one in German. Let's see how that will work.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And please, everybody, subscribe to Brian's channel. I'm gonna link this, of course, in the video description. And I think let's wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Falls ihr diesen Kanal unterstützen wollt, dann schaut mal bei Shop for Tesla rein. Ihr bekommt 5% Rabatt auf jetzt alle Produkte und ihr tragt mit eurem Kauf auch dazu bei, dass ich weiter diese Videos machen kann. Diese Sendung wurde freundlicherweise vom Tesla Owners Club Helvetia in der Schweiz und dem TFF, dem Tesla Fahrer und Freunde e.V. unterstützt.